Georgia, here at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, where the Sim Racer Club is going to be continuing their round of 4 here in the playoffs. I'm Andre Graham Bush, joined alongside Jordan Harnish, and of course, Carlos Acosta, the man pushing the buttons, bringing all the action to your TVs and computers. Jordan, this is going to be a pretty fun race. I've always been pretty fond of Atlanta. Always one of my favorite tracks to drive in the video games. One of my favorite tracks to watch races at in particular, especially back in those old Gen 4 cars. But, I'm a little bit biased, so what are you expecting for tonight?
Just thinking back to the springtime here when we were here earlier this season, it's going to be a really good race. Multi-groove track, one of the few multi-groove tracks that actually work on iRacing very well. 3 lanes that are all going to work well together. Slightly small car count, but with the track that we have here tonight, it's really not going to matter. It's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. It's not about how many cars you got in the race. It's just about the racing product itself. And luckily, Atlanta, it puts on such a good show generally. You mentioned how it's multi-groove compared to a lot of the other tracks, and I would have to agree. You can run the top, you can run the bottom. I think as the runs go on, these drivers might be fighting tight just a little bit, depending on the setup they've been provided tonight. But I do know Atlanta is known for its tire wear. It is one of the things that was always talked about even back in the day. And it seems like no matter what kind of car or what kind of tire that Goodyear brings out, this track just eats the tires for breakfast. So it's going to be a lot of conservation these guys have to do. They want to keep the tires underneath them, keep the car handling well. Otherwise, they might just find themselves sliding into that outside wall coming out of turn 2. But right now, they're wrapping up practice. They're going to head into quals for the race. And of course, 1 car on track for the qualifying session. It's not open to quals, so it'll be a little bit different in qualifying than it will be for the race. Atlanta is one of those tracks that you put dirty air in the mix, and you put the traffic around you, and it's almost a completely different experience than when you're just out there hot lapping by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. You look in the round of 4 that we have this season, the only mile-and-a-half track, the only track that you're going to be mostly wide open the entire way around it. Everywhere else has been a short track or a shorter track. So this is that one, I would say, wild card in the round of 4 where someone could kind of jump up and make a big move and make a name for themselves going into the final round at Phoenix next week.
Absolutely. Everybody's going to want to be trying to get on the upper advantage here going into Phoenix. Phoenix is a track that I think is a wild card for a lot of drivers. It's a very tough track, especially now that the iRacing service has announced that they will be very quickly updating Phoenix. And if you own Phoenix now, you'll be getting the updated version, and the old one will be removed from the simulator. And from what I've heard, the new version of Phoenix is going to be real slick. The track surface is not going to be as fresh as it was on the old scan. Drivers are going to be struggling for grip, so that final race is going to be tough. If you can get yourself an advantage now, then it's going to be a little bit easier for you if you can just get that points cushion here at Atlanta, which is, kind of the devil. It's not an easy track by any means, but at least the drivers know how this track drives versus the new Phoenix. It'll be fun to watch for sure. I mean, these playoff drivers are going to be absolutely going at it. And one advantage of the smaller field, Jordan, is that the playoff drivers, I think, are going to be able to really go at it and race hard amongst themselves. And they're not going to be worried about too much lap traffic or anything going on with cars that are a little bit off pace. It's really going to come down to just the best of the best, the drivers who are still in the Final 4, and they're going to be giving it everything they got.
Yeah, absolutely, everything they got. That's really the only option they have left. Looking at the point standings, Greg Evans currently holds a 4,098 point lead, 4,098 points, 16-point lead over Tyler Saville, who is currently doesn't appear to be here at the moment. So a 16-point lead over the guy in second, who's currently not here. Third right now is Michael Chrobok, who sits 10 points behind Saville. And Scott Eckrich, missing last week, he's currently 46 points behind Chrobok. So the 2 drivers that are here trying to chase down Greg Evans, their only option is to go. They've got to make big moves. They've got to try to do whatever they possibly can to get themselves in front of Greg and hope Greg has a sort of rough night.
Yeah, I mean, with the field sizes that we've had as the cars roll out for qualifying, with the field size we've had, it would be possible for the points leader to lock in the championship, I would say, after tonight, wouldn't it? If he had a really good run. So these drivers that are behind him, they got to make sure he doesn't do that. They got to make sure they still can mathematically have a chance at it going into Phoenix. So the only way to do that is to outright beat him. So they will have to do that as we follow along with Mahan in the 84. He is working that low line, and I think for qualifying, I think that is going to be the preferred area. You're not going to see too many drivers moving up to the wall early on. You're going to want to hug that bottom lane. 1 and 2 is a little bit different than 3 and 4 at this track. I've found 1 and 2 tends to be a little bit tighter, a little bit more of a sharp corner with maybe less banking. I'm not entirely sure what it is that makes that corner feel sharper, but the car never turns as well in 1 and 2, so you really want to arc it in. You want to hug the bottom as much as you can. 3 and 4, the car is going to be a little bit more free. You have more options as to what lane you run, but again, I think the bottom will be faster if you follow along with Yazik in the 55. But what are some of your predictions for qualifying here, Jordan?
Just looking at the speed charts, it's really hard to predict who's going to be fast. You looked at the practice speed charts; they're kind of all over the place. It's hard to predict. Like I said, on a 2-lap run here by themselves, what these guys are going to do because you're wide open most of the way. It really all depends on who's going to catch that gust of wind just right down the back straightaway. Who's going to hit the line perfectly through 1 and 2, like you mentioned. That's just a little bit more snug than 3 and 4. And the names that jump into my mind: Greg Evans, Scott Eckrich, Braxton DeWeese. All 3 drivers really quickly jump out in my brain. Are probably going to be the top 3 in this qualifying run.
I think Scott Eckrich is about to get one heater of a lap. He ran the outside line for his first lap, running a very slow 32.4. But in doing so, I think he wound up more speed on that first lap by running the high line. He was able to build up more momentum. Now on the second lap, he's using that speed to cut down to the bottom. And as he crosses the line, let's see where he gets put on the podium for his second lap. And that's going to be on the pole. 30.925, top of the board. Troy Haight behind him with a 30.959. So 2 drivers in that 30-second bracket just barely. Michael Chrobok still sitting third. Tim Knott just posted his first lap, 31.3. But I tell you what, Jordan, that is experience right there. A lot of these guys did not run the high side on the first lap. They went right to the bottom. And in doing so, I think that cost them a little bit of speed on their second lap. But Eckrich, he knows what he's doing. He's a very talented driver in this sim, and he knows as well as anybody that if you sacrifice that first lap, sometimes it helps you on lap 2.
Absolutely. You look at all the qualifying sessions throughout this season, and one name always kind of comes to mind when you think qualifying. And Scott Eckrich, always towards the top of the speed charts, and it's represented in the races as well, as he has a record number of wins throughout this season. And probably would have been a championship contender had he not missed last week. So definitely one of the biggest names to think of is Scott Eckrich when it comes to qualifying.
Absolutely, and he is still top of the board. We only have a few drivers that have not yet posted a time. Braxton DeWeese is among them, as well as Mark Myers and Adam Jersky in that number 69 car. Looks like Richard Fletcher just posted his first lap. It was 31.190. That's going to put him sitting 7th right now. I believe he's got one more lap to go. He is 8th now. So it looks like right now this is kind of the running order we're going to expect to see for the start of the race. It's going to be difficult for these guys that haven't turned a lap to really do anything, because it looks like we actually lost shade. I've been kind of looking at the sky, and it seems a little bit more sunny now than at the start of the qualifying session. And of course, cloud cover brings the track temp down, gives you a little bit more grip, which of course is going to take your lap times down into incredibly fast ranges. But we've only got about 4 minutes into this session, so about 6 minutes left for quals, unless these guys all post times. Braxton DeWeese and Mark Myers now the only drivers to not post times. We've got 163 laps when we roll out for the race here. That is going to mean these drivers are going to have to stop probably 2, maybe even 3 times. What kind of strategy do you think we're looking at for tonight?
Man, with this few amount of cars, it's hard to guess the strategy these guys are going to go for. I didn't get the notes on how far we can go on fuel, but if I remember correctly, on these mile and a halves, it's a little ways they can go. But as we saw last week, it's a game of, do we try to short pit and take the extra tires, or do you drag it out as long as you possibly can? And at a mile and a half like this, where everyone's going to be so tightly together, it's going to be a real game of chess. And these guys do have 4 sets of tires, so 1 on the car, 3 in the pit. So I almost expect them to utilize every set that they have.
And, I almost wonder if it's not going to be a Daytona Talladega situation where they're going to try to pit in packs. They want to pit with each other, because when you've got such a small field size, I think the draft is going to be incredibly important, because you would think the field is going to be very tight, very close together. If you pit off sequence and get yourself out away from them, you don't have the draft, and that could take away tenths off of your lap time consistently until you finally find a drafting partner. So I could almost see these guys wanting to coordinate themselves and pit together. because if they don't, that might be putting themselves at a disadvantage. With the way this track is, you can run wide open for a solid 10 or 15 laps before you have to lift. And even then, it's just a blip of the throttle. So if you can get up on somebody's bumper and sort of work with them in tandem, that is a huge, huge advantage that these drivers are going to want to take advantage of. Nothing really changing in the qualifying podium here. We've got Scott Eckert still on the pole. Nobody was able to get out ahead of him. Greg Evans second, Troy Haight third, Michael Chrobok fourth, Brian Yazek fifth. Adam Jersky actually posted a lap time, and he is now seated sixth on the grid. So a pretty good lap out of the Adam Jersky's Cheesecake Machine. And behind him, Woody Mahan in that 84, John Eckert with a 31.18. He's going to be sitting eighth. Richard Fletcher ninth, only 0.02 of a second behind Eckert. Tim Knott is the final driver to have posted a time, and he's going to round out your top 10. Braxton DeWeese and Mark Myers still have not posted a time, probably opting to start in the back, which is maybe the play. I mean, you're going to see a lot of big runs with the draft here, Jordan, and if you start in the back, you're kind of putting yourself in position to take advantage of that.
Yeah, if you think back to what they always said about Daniel Hart, you can see the air. That's what I think those guys can do in the back there. They can be able to see the air. They can be able to see what's going on, kind of play it out in their brain before too much happens. Like you mentioned, 163 laps. There's no reason to really put yourself in a bad position early on. So sit in the back. Why not learn what's going to happen in front of you, and then you can take your notes with you to school afterwards and make a run towards the end.
Absolutely. We have 2.5 minutes left on the qualifying clock before we grid for the race. And with the two drivers there at the bottom not posting a time, I think this really is our final grid. And Scott Eckert and Greg Evans, that's a very powerful front row, presuming that's where they roll off. I mean, these are two of the best drivers, I think, of the last few races in terms of speed, and they're going to immediately have that clean air, which is, there's advantages to starting in the back, but there's also advantages to starting in the front, and that advantage is that you get clean air. You don't got that aero push. You have nothing disturbing the aero dependency of your car, so your car's kind of handling a little bit better than the guys behind you. So they've given themselves that advantage. It's going to be pretty interesting, but again, these guys behind, they're going to have so many ways to overtake them. It's such a multi-groove track. You can go high, you can go low, you could take the middle. And if you use the draft right and you get those slingshot maneuvers, you'll be able to make some overtakes no problem. So it'll be a ton of fun to watch as we get a little bit of cloud cover rolling in before the start of the race. Curious to see if this sticks around. But Braxton DeWeese is on track. So we have one more driver posting a time. It would appear in that Reaper Speed Lab number 5. He is going to pull out on the back stretch and see what he can do. Braxton, of course, a very talented driver. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe overtake a few of these guys on the scoring pylon. And it looks, Jordan, like he's actually taking the outside line on this first lap, a lot like Scott Eckridge did.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like he waited for that last second cloud cover. It's kind of a gamble you take. You don't know if it's actually going to show up or not. And looks like it showed up, and he's going to try to make every ounce of it work for him. He, like you said, up against the wall on his first lap here, and just to build up as much speed as you possibly can. And honestly, it saves a little bit of tire too, because you can go a little bit slower. You don't have to be as wide open. You don't have to be scrubbing as much tire around the top like he's doing right now. And then once it comes to go time, your fast lap number 2, right around the bottom, keep that thing wound up as best as you possibly can, and you got one chance to make it go.
And he is going to have just barely enough time to make this second lap. Coming into turn 1, he's going to dive down. It'll be close if he makes this lap. You mentioned it's a risk to wait for that last-minute cloud cover. This may be the risk playing out before our eyes, because he was at about 9 minutes and 31 seconds into the session, meaning he'd need a 29-second lap time almost to make it to the line before the flag is thrown, and I don't think he's going to get it. 9 minutes, 58 seconds, and 10 minutes on the clock right there, and he's been pulled out of the session, so he's just going to miss that second lap. And I'll tell you what, that first lap alone put him in 7th. I think if he could have completed that second lap, Jordan, we might have been looking at a top 3 time with that cloud cover.
That definitely looked like it was a fast time. So definitely looked like it was a fast time. I would have loved to see where he would have ended up, because I think you're definitely correct. He would have been a top 3 car for sure, possibly even tracking for the pole had he been able to finish that lap. So risk versus reward, and unfortunately the risk bit him on that one.
Yeah, you got to think he's kicking himself right now for not pulling out just 5 seconds sooner. If he had done so, he would have made the lap. So that's the game you play, waiting for the cloud cover, and the cloud cover has stayed for the race. I'm looking at these cars on the grid there on the tri-oval or the quad-oval in front of the fans, and a lot of cloud covers so far, which is going to make the start of this race even more chaotic. And it looks like Scott Eckrich has been given an EOL, so he will be going to the back of the grid, and I believe that is going to bump up the entire inside row, correct? That'll leave the number 2 on the outside, and that'll put Troy Haight inside row 1 once he serves that EOL. So Haight, very fast in qualifying. That 28 machine might have a good shot at it early on.
Absolutely, that might be the break Troy needs to get out front, get some clean air, and that's gonna be the key to the guys running out front is that clean air. It's really hard to make a pass when you're second on back. You can get a really good run on the guy in front of you, but it's really hard to complete that pass unless you get on their bottom, going into one of the corners usually. So with the 70 going to the rear, big break for Troy Haight starting the race out.
Absolutely, and you can see the 70 car pulling off there. He's making a left turn towards the Legends Oval. I think there's a minimum lap time for NASCAR, so if you go around the Legends Oval, I don't think your transponder is going to count that, so he's going to let everybody go. He'll go to the tail end of the field, which luckily for him, and this is kind of a saving grace for Scott Eckrich, is, again, not a very large field present tonight, so even though he got an EOL, there's not too many cars he's got to pass. We've only got about 6 rows of cars, respectively, so it's a setback, but a lot of laps, a lot of time to work his way up to the front, not too many cars to pass to get there, so he'll be doing his best to work his way up front, and Troy Haight will be doing his best to try to hold on to this lead that he has been given through this circumstance. Greg Evans, he's going to want to make sure that he can have a good run tonight and try to lock in the points championship mathematically, because again, Phoenix is going to be such an unknown for these guys. It's coming out tomorrow. We'll be able to start practicing for the final race of the season. And I'm sure a lot of these drivers are going to put in a ton of practice because it's what you got to do. This game is not really a game, it's a simulator. And every lap that you put into a track is going to help you. It's going to improve your performance. It can improve the knowledge that you have of the track and the car. And they're going to be working at it, I'm sure. But the pace car is about to make that hard left turn down pit road. There she goes. And Troy Haight going to head to the restart zone, take the green flag. Look at this, Greg Evans with a great start on the outside. They are nose to nose at the stripe. Evans actually getting a better start than the leader. Outside line moving very well. I don't think he's quite clear, so they're going to be side by side through 1 and 2. Haight with a preferred line down low. Of course, side drafting at a track that's so aero-dependent is going to be very, very crucial. If the drivers know how to do it effectively, it's going to be another tool in their arsenal. Troy Haight side by side again in that bottom lane. He's going to let him get the advantage just momentarily. But Evans not giving up on that high line. And I think this lap has shown us exactly what you were talking about, Jordan. This is a multi-groove track. It's not often you see the front row stay side by side for the entire first lap.
Not at all. And this is one of the reasons why, even though it's a mile and a half and on the not so preferred aero package, these guys still like coming here because you can make things happen here. You can run side by side. You can have fun. Almost feel like it's the old car. Obviously, there are vast differences between the old car and this car, but this kind of gives you that little bit of feel that the car is still in your hands. You still have a chance to do what you want to do with it, and we're seeing that here with the 28 still being able to hang on in the top 3.
Absolutely, and Adam Jersky moving up as well. He just got to the inside of Troy Haight. Looks like he might get clear of him. Not quite. The outside lane had just enough momentum for Troy Haight to stay on the outside and keep him from getting clear. Now he's got a huge run as in front of him, Michael Chrobok was on the bumper of the leader, pushing him to 3 and 4. And I think that's another move. I mentioned side drafting being one tool in your arsenal. Well, that is another one. You can really use the bumper at Atlanta because the drafting is so powerful. If you get your bumper right up on the deck lid of the driver in front of you and sort of get the rear end of their car a little light, take the air off that spoiler, that really forces them to concede the corner entry. They can't go into the corner as fast as they normally would when they have no air on that spoiler. They got to give it up, which allows you to get a run through the corner and make the overtake just as Chrobok did, as he is the race leader at this point. But it's a risky move. You definitely don't want to mess that up, because if you mess it up, you might wind up wrecking the competition, and none of these drivers want to do that. They want to have a clean, fair race. But it is a move that you kind of have to use sometimes. You just got to make sure you do it right.
Absolutely, and it's a game of precision, like you mentioned. going down in the corner, you can give them a bump, you can give them a shove, but if you give them too hard of a shove going into especially turn 3 and 4, you might watch them go washing up the track, and there's a pretty good chance if they do that, you're probably going with them because the bobble of their car is going to upset yours as well. And where it's such an air-dependent car now, one little turbulence can really shake things up for more than one person.
It absolutely can, and look at this. Michael Chrobok actually pulling away from the field. Brian Yazek right up against the 69 as well there. These guys are in a sort of 4-car train behind our leader, but he's pulling away. A lot of speed early on out of that 72 machine. You don't see that very often in Atlanta. Sometimes it's hard for the leader to break away simply because of the draft. It allows the cars behind to, even if they don't have the corner speed that you do, you get to the straightaway and they're going to suck right back up to your bumper. But that doesn't seem to be an issue for the 72 just yet, as look at this. Now Adam Jersky doing the same thing that Chrobok did to Greg Evans. He put the bumper to him going into the corner, got him unsettled, but he wasn't able to make the pass, so he's going to fall back in line there in third. And the leader, he likes what he's seeing in his mirror. He wants these guys to battle. He wants these guys to fight as hard as they could possibly fight, because they're just going to slow each other down in doing so and allow him to get out to a bigger lead, which will be really crucial, because you got to think, if Michael Chrobok can get just a little further out, maybe half a second, he'll be out of drafting range. And then these cars behind him won't have the advantage of being able to use his draft. So further away he can get, the better. But it has sort of stalled out at about 0.6 seconds here on lap 8. These guys kind of working in tandem. They're going into the corner all in a single file line, which that's what you got to do. None of these guys want to necessarily work with each other, because at the end of the day, racing is a competition, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And if you can work together and use the draft to catch up to this car that's kind of leaving you in the dust, that's absolutely what you're going to do.
Absolutely it is. The 2 of the 69 joining forces on Steel Horse Racing midway through the season here, and you look behind him, it looks like the 55, Brian Yazek, trying to chase his teammate down to the 72. It looks like they're gaining just a little bit. As you mentioned, they're trying to stopping fighting with each other and just kind of working their way back into the back bumper of the 72. If I'm the 72 of Michael Chrobok, though, this is exactly what he needs to do to try to gain points on Greg Evans going into the final race. He needs to get out front. He needs to lead as many laps as he possibly can. Keep that 2 car in his mirror. Now, granted, if the 2 finishes right behind him, he's not going to gain a whole heck of a lot of points, but he's going to close that gap heading into the final race. And as long as he keeps that gap within a reasonable distance, he still has a shot going into Phoenix.
Yeah, he just can't let himself fall too far back through the pack and the number 2 win. That is the worst case scenario for him, the DNF, and the number 2 wins. If that happens, Greg Evans may well mathematically lock himself into the championship prior to Phoenix. So 72's got to race hard, but at the same time, it's almost contradictory. You have to race hard, but you can't race so hard that you put yourself in jeopardy, because a DNF means that his hopes are absolutely gone as they fight side by side. Chrobok with a huge run out of the corner. Look at this. The number 2 was nearly clear coming out of turn 2, and the 72 fought back on the high line and didn't just get clear of him. He pulled about a car length once he got in front. And man, that was impressive. The cloud cover right now still covering the tri-oval a little bit more than the backstretch, so they got a lot of grip going into 1 and coming out of 4. And that seems to be an advantage that the number 2 is using to his advantage as he goes down to the bottom, trying again to throw a slide job on the leader, Michael Chrobok, and it looks like he will be successful in that endeavor. He's going to take P1, so Greg Evans back on top of the scoring pylon, and now it's going to be up to Michael Chrobok to try and fight back and take that position back. But with how hard that 72 has been driving and how fast those first few laps were, I got to wonder if he's not on the backslide on tire wear right now, Jordan. Maybe he's feeling a little bit more wear than the competition.
He absolutely could be. Those tires could be cooked a little bit too much right now, trying to cool them back off. He is running that outside line still, though, so that's still kind of surprising to me that he hasn't tried to venture down to the bottom yet to see if there's anything there. Obviously, he must have felt something in practice that he liked up on the outside, and he's trying to stick with it. But eventually, you're going to have to try to move down to the bottom, try to find something else that the other drivers have figured out on top of you. Quick note here, we saw on screen the 45 of John Eckhart was facing the wrong direction and bouncing off the wall there early on. He has since retired from the event, so I'm not 100% sure what happened to the 45, but an early incident put that car behind the wall.
Unfortunate start to the race, and it can be frustrating, having an issue that early on, and you just feel like you want to take it behind the wall. When you got a field this small as well, sometimes these drivers might feel like it'll be hard to get in a situation where they're racing with anybody and having a good time. So Unfortunate to see him go, but hopefully he'll be back in full form next week, and he'll be able to show his worth there at Phoenix. The 72 falls back to third. His teammate Brian Yazek moved up to second. Now he's actually challenging Greg Evans for the lead. There goes Braxton DeWeese. He's making a move for third there on the 20 or the 72. I apologize. I gotta wonder, running the outside line, it's costing him a lot of time right now, but there is a lot less tire wear over a run if you run the outside line, because you don't have to turn your front tires as much. You're not scuffing away that tire like you would be trying to hold the bottom, cranking on that wheel. So honestly, I feel like the 72 is playing a bit of a long con here. He's giving up the positions now to try and save his tire later, as we have a very close battle for second. Braxton DeWeese trying to get around Brian Yazek. A lot of side drafting going on. He's going to tuck in line just barely, make another go at it here into 3 and 4, sending it in deep into turn 3, down on that white line. And he is going to get clear momentarily, but then the 55 just strikes back on that outside line. Brian Yazek with a huge run. He's going to get clear again. Actually, this time he is going to bring the 72 back in tow, so he's going to try to reclaim that outside line. And as this run is going on, I'm noticing the number 2 is slowly working his way up the track as well. He's not running as high as the 72 is, but he is slowly working his way up little by little. So I think, I think we may have an issue. Looks like the 69 is on the apron. Not sure how that happened. We'll try to dial up a replay. Oh wow, 72 involved. 69 front end is gone. I was following along with the leaders. I apologize, I missed this, so I'm not entirely sure what the circumstance was, but we are getting a replay. That's going to put Yazek in second, DeWeese firmly in third, with a fairly decent gap over Mahan there, who is closing in. Top of the screen, that's the replay. Let's find out what happened. The 72 just got a little tight out of the corner. He's on the wall, and what he's doing there is he's fighting, trying to get off the wall, and once it finally releases him, it just ejected him, Jordan. I mean, he was trying to get off the wall. He was stuck to it like glue. And once he got off, it just completely ejected him down across the nose of the 69. The 72 is totaled after that incident. He's got passenger side damage, front end damage, rear end damage, and the 69 has no front end. So it's unfortunate for Adam Jersky, but for the 72, that very well could be the end of his playoff hopes.
Absolutely, it could be. You mentioned it looked like he got stuck in the wall there for a good solid 10 seconds, and that we mentioned it's a simulator. They do an extremely good job, iRacing does, at replicating these tracks, but it also is a computer game, and there's multiple factors that go into everything that you see on track here, and unfortunately every now and again you get what we call the sticky wall conundrum, and that's kind of what it looked like. He hit it, kind of got stuck into it, and when it finally, like you mentioned, like when it finally let go, it just kind of let go and shot him across the track. And unfortunately, that was the end of that for the 72 Michael Chrobok and the 69 of Adam Jersky.
Yeah, and it's not even entirely unrealistic. I mean, we've seen scenarios similar to that, maybe a little less drastic or a little less abrupt, but we have seen similar situations in real life. I mean, Jimmy Johnson at Darlington basically took himself out of the race in, I believe it was 2019, the exact same way. Just got stuck on the outside, or last year in 2020, just got stuck on the outside wall, and as soon as he got off of it, the car spun down the track. So actually kind of props to iRacing there for simulating that. But that's the risk you run, running that high line. I think he was trying to run up there to conserve his tires, to play that long game. But unfortunately, this track gets tight, and sometimes once that car starts pushing up, it's very difficult to stop. It just wants to keep sliding up the track. And even if you let off the throttle, even if you crank on the steering wheel, your front end just isn't having it, and you'll find yourself scraping that wall. And at that point, you never really know what's going to happen. So very unfortunate, as he's going to try to stick it out. He has not gone behind the wall yet. Adam Jersky, on the other hand, in the number 69, he is behind the wall. So he will be ending his night a little early, and a thin field gets a little bit thinner.
That it does, and that's one risky run with having these smaller fields is if an incident like that happens, for one, there's not enough cars to really trigger a caution. They were below the white line, and the iRacing algorithm for cautions is really, as long as you're off the racing surface, caution's not coming out. So unfortunately for the 72 at Chrobok and the 69 at Jersky, they got below the white line. There's a lot of runoff room down there, and they never really slid back up. And when they did finally slide back up, there was no cars around to really throw the caution. So unfortunately, the 69 Jersky, he out of the playoff championship. He really nothing left for him to race for tonight, being that damaged. Kind of same situation as John Eckert. On the other hand, Chrobok, you mentioned the car is absolutely destroyed. It took a hit on every single corner, but he's still plugging away. He almost has to. You have to hope and pray that more drivers have an issue, and you can cut that points lead or the points deficit you're going to go facing down a little bit. And as you mentioned, if it's too large and we have another small field next week, it could be all for naught.
Absolutely, that could be, and it's a shame for Adam Jersky too, just because he wasn't in it for the points, sure, but he's had a rocket ship of a car. We saw him come from mid-pack all the way up to challenging for the lead at one point. So that car seemed like it was on rails. He seemed to be having a good time out there, and then just a situation that I don't think he could have done anything about. And even the 72, I feel like that was just a situation where nobody really did anything wrong. It was just a slight mistake that, due to the nature of stock car racing, sometimes little mistakes can absolutely snowball into something bigger. And that's what happened. A minor mistake by the 72, but we may be able to have a word with Adam Jersky, according to our producer. So let's see if we can't pull him into the infield care center, see what he has to say. Adam Jersky, you got a copy?
Yes, sir, I do.
Well, Adam, you had a rocket ship out there prior to the incident. You worked your way through a lot of the field. You were challenging for the lead at one point, and then coming onto the backstretch out of turn 2, it was just chaos. Walk me through it.
Yeah, it gets real tight off of 2, especially on old tires. And I saw, Chrobok was sliding up. I thought maybe he could keep it off the wall, and he just caught it enough to get him dragged into it. And I tried backing off because I know it's they're gonna usually come flying off the wall, and I just didn't give enough room. I hate that I made Chrobok's night much worse. I think I semi flying into the infield wall, so I know he's got bigger things going on than I do, but it just gets real tight off of 2 on some really not that much worn tires. And I drove it for a couple laps, but it was even harder to turn after the damage. So just had to park it, but it's unfortunate. But I guess we'll look forward to next week.
Absolutely. And speaking of next week, you're going to Phoenix. It's a new scan of the track. It'll be a bit of an unknown for the drivers here in the league. And I'm kind of curious, what is a driver's perspective on this track being scanned in and having a race on it for the final event?
Well, luckily, as far as a new event goes, it's not that much of a difference. As far as how the track races, it's still the same pretty much, at least I believe, from what I remember. Just the finish line has moved.
Whoa! Sorry to cut you off. We got a bit of an incident going on track. Got a car ping-ponging off of another one. It seems like it was Chrobok. Oh, man, again. So that damage maybe the cause there. A bad night gets worse for the 72. But anyway, I'm sorry to cut you off there, Adam. Continue.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that the track really isn't that much different, but I guess it'll be new for everyone, so no one will have too much of an advantage. Not sure how the car will restart on old tires, kind of going through that turn. I think that'll be a big change because I think those caution the biggest change and adjustment to not spin the tires. But looking forward to it. Should make the field a little more even going there.
All right, well, Adam, thanks for your time. We're sorry your race ended the way that it did. Really not a whole lot you can do in a situation like that, but that is stock car racing. Never know what's going to happen. Good luck next week, and we're looking forward to seeing you at Phoenix.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
That is Adam Jersky out of the booth. But, Jordan, this incident for the 72 already laps down and then into the outside wall again in contact with a few of the other cars. I feel like this is a driver driving out of frustration. He was frustrated at what happened. He's trying to make up all the time and all the points that he can, and unfortunately it just culminated in another mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. You knock the fenders off these cars, you knock the spoiler off, you knock the back bumper off, you knock anything off them really, and they become a handful to drive. And you mentioned it, Chrobok just driving out of pure frustration at this point. He saw a chance that he could close the gap on the points lead and possibly have a chance going into Phoenix next week, and he's kind of watching that fizzle away in front of his eyes. So I think, like you say, he's trying everything he possibly can clawing away with that car. I mean, it's obviously extremely damaged. He's sitting on pit road right now, getting it fixed, trying to get as much of it fixed as he can. But unfortunately, the longer he sits there, the more laps he goes down. And with it being this short of a field, I really don't foresee a caution coming anytime soon. And that's just continuing to spell trouble for the 72.
And with the points predicament that he was in coming into this race, I think at this point his only hope is that Evans also gets involved in something, DNFs, joins him at the back of the field, and then he maintains that 16, 17-point gap going into Phoenix. But even then, he would need a larger field at Phoenix, and he would need Greg Evans to finish towards the tail end of that larger field. None of that is a guarantee. In fact, I would call that entire scenario a bit of a stretch. So not looking great on the outlook for the number 72, and it's unfortunate, but that is how this playoff format goes. I mean, even with the format that this league runs, a little bit different than real life. The Final Four drivers get to run a number of races and accumulate points over those races rather than just coming down to one single race. Even then, this format kind of rewards drivers being fast and being consistent at the right time. You can be fast at the beginning of the season, that's great. You can be fast in the middle of the season, and that's great. But the most important time that you could turn on that light switch and start ticking off those wins and those top fives is right at the end. And with Greg Evans, that's exactly what he's done. He knows the game, he knows how to play it, and he's played it perfectly.
Absolutely. You mentioned he went on an absolute drought throughout the middle of the season here when Scott Eckridge was going on an absolute tear, winning 14 races throughout the season. So it's kind of like what we saw last year from Greg Evans with the 70 Scott Eckridge. Evans won a boatload of races throughout the season last year and was able to just hold on throughout the championship and win the final race. This season, it was a little bit different route for him. He had to rely on consistent finishes, second, third, fifth, or a lot of his finishes, and that's what propelled him into the Final Four here. And in the Final Four, he's been absolutely on fire. He's won the first two events, leading the third one. Basically, a win tonight is going to seal the deal for him. At this point, there's nothing left that anyone can do if this two-car wins.
Yeah, if he gets a win tonight, even if he finishes second, I think that pretty much seals it, depending on how many cars show up next week. So that's what he's looking to do, of course, and he's playing the game perfectly. But this battle on screen, this has been going on. Brian Yazik has been under fire from both lanes. Cars high, cars low. Woody Mahan loose in the middle of the straightaway. I don't see that very often. He's going to work his way back to the top before the corner to get that better entry. But yeah, Yazik is having to work both lanes here. He's trying to block the high line on the straightaways, and then in the corners, he's trying to dive down and block that low line, trying to stop those lines from advancing where they're strong on the circuit. I mean, obviously the bottom's going to be faster in the corners. That's why he's blocking. That is Braxton DeWeese side drafting the number 70 pretty aggressively there, and it works. He's going to stay side by side coming out of the corner with a good run. A little bit loose there, a little bit squirrely. This is very risky driving at all of these guys so close together. And after we've already seen what happened with the 72 getting into that outside wall, they're playing a bit of a dangerous game here.
Absolutely they are. And the 5 of Braxton DeWeese, 55, Brian Yazik really have nothing to lose. Obviously, the 70 Scott Eckridge kind of in the same boat. He is in the championship 4, but he's so far behind that they got nothing to lose. So the big moves are coming out of these guys. And sometimes that's not what you want on lap 40 of 163 is big moves be happening, because with the multiple cars already out of the event and one lap down, there's not many left. So if we wreck too many more, it could spell disaster all around.
Yeah, if we lose too many more cars, it might be slightly reminiscent of the 2005 U.S. Grand Prix for Formula One. That was a real-life Formula One race that was ran at Indianapolis, and there was a tire debacle. I believe the tires that were brought by Pirelli, I believe, were just not up to snuff. The diamond grading of the track was blowing everybody's tires coming onto the oval part of the road course. And so only 5 cars entered the race, 3 cars finished it. Michael Schumacher won that race. And to this day, it kind of goes down as kind of the biggest meme in Formula One. We might be looking at a similar situation here, but you can't blame these drivers. You got a smaller field. A lot of these guys aren't in it for the points. They're just out here to have fun. And I'll tell you what these guys are doing out here, Woody Mahan making the move on the 55, Braxton DeWeese side drafting, that's fun. I can guarantee you these guys are having an absolute blast behind the wheel, and I'm having a lot of fun watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing more fun than running side by side with somebody at any racetrack, and when you can do it this close together, three cars in a battle. You're thinking, you're sliding, you're having to do a whole bunch in the car, and that's what puts a smile on your face. That's the reason why you show up. You don't show up to ride around by yourself and just log laps. You show up to race hard with people. You show up to race side by side, and that's what these three are doing right now. And it looks like they're going to add a fourth to the mix here in about 2 seconds.
Yeah, Woody Mahan making the move on the high line, and Troy Haight, who led a little bit early on, had a fast car early. He's joining them. They're fourth in line, sixth overall on track. And then we got a bit of a gap to Tim in the number 41. He's about half a corner away from these guys. Fletcher behind him. He's nearly an entire corner back from the lead pack. But yeah, these guys absolutely battling it out. In the meantime, Scott Eckridge finally worked his way around them. And I was going to mention Eckridge because I was a little surprised how long it took. You know, when I seen him get the AOL, I thought, well, that's not many cars to pass. And Eckridge is an absolute monster behind the wheel sometimes. We've seen him turn off or click off some laps that pretty much nobody else could. You know, he's such a fast driver. I thought he was going to be up there intermingling with the top three within the first 10 laps, but really it took him almost 40 to get up into the second position. Right now, it would appear he's lapping, if I can see, well, actually, no, my timing and scoring keeps going back to the pace car. He's lapping a little bit slower than our leader. Greg Evans last time around ran a 33.4, and Scott Eckridge ran a 33.6. And I'll tell you what, that is a great indicator of the tire wear that we've had so far, Jordan. We're 40 laps plus into this run, and we've already lost over 2 seconds on lap times from qualifying.
Yeah, it's abrasive track, and that's why they're going about.
Whoa, Eckridge!
Quick jump on a pit road.
Yeah, he got the outside grass, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan, but I think as far as iRacing is concerned, that is an unsafe entry, which may result in a penalty. We'll have to see how long he stays in the pit box here. He's going to slide into his stall. He's got the first stall in line. Of course, he got the pole, so in any normal circumstance, he would be able to just get on the throttle, not have to worry about pulling out of the stall or anything like that, right back into the action. But with this penalty, probably not going to be much of an advantage. The left side goes up, 4 tires and fuel, and he's actually out. So somehow didn't get a penalty. That is possibly one of the luckiest breaks I've seen, Scott, because now look at this. The cards are in his hand. He got a pit road entry that I think was so fast that nobody's going to be able to replicate that. I mean, that was on the absolute edge of how fast you get into the pits. And he pit earlier than the leader, so he's going to get that short run undercut advantage. I think we could see this number 70 cycle out with a lead.
Absolutely, you could. You talk about one of the fastest pit road entries we've seen all season long, and absolute luckiest one as well. If you think back to Talladega, one thing that eliminated a few drivers from playoff contention was pit road mistakes. Speeding on pit road, clipping the cone. A bunch of different mistakes happened on pit road, and that's what we were expecting to see there, but he definitely got lucky with the iRacing gods on that one, and it was able to just go through, and now he's on a mission. Like you say, he's probably going to cycle out to the leader.
Yeah, Greg Evans staying out another lap, so it's been 2 laps since the number 70 pitted, and we had just said they had lost 2 seconds per lap from fresh tires to old tires. So right now, if Greg Evans pits, mathematically that would put the 70 cycling in front of him. I'm not sure what the strategy here is for Evans. I feel like with the 70 pitting when he did, that kind of forces the leader's hand because we got such a small field that the strategy of running it dry and hoping for a caution to trap anybody a lap down isn't really in play tonight. I don't think that card is on the table just because we're probably not going to see any cautions.
No, it'd be extremely rare to see a caution tonight. The only thing I can think of at this point would be pit road entry mistake. Someone makes a big mistake going on to pit road, maybe loses it and slides it back across the track, or possibly exiting pit road and loses it on the apron. I think that's the only chances you're going to see at a caution the rest of the night, as far as the field is starting to spread out.
Absolutely. Greg Evans is in 3 and 4. Braxton DeWeese just put in the driver's chat that he'll be pitting this time by. Let's see what Evans does. Doesn't look like he's slowing down on the speedometer. No, sir. He's going to speed right by pit road. Not a care in the world. And there goes the number 70 unlapping himself. So now Eckridge is on the lead lap, and he's done that under green. That pretty much guarantees that he will cycle out. And look at this difference in speed. Look at that, Jordan. He pulled away 10 car lengths halfway through the corner, and he is continuing to pull away. I mean, Greg Evans is having to get down to under 150 miles an hour to get around these corners. And that 70 is rolling around these corners in excess of 170. So a huge difference in speed. Evans is going to go by pit road again. It could be a situation of, are we looking at a 3-stop versus a 2-stop? Is Evans trying to eliminate a pit stop entirely, trying to maybe cut this race down? Actually, it would be a 3-stop versus a 4-stop at 160 laps, I believe. It'd be 3 versus 4 at that rate. So either way, it could be that Greg is just trying to cut off one stop entirely.
Definitely could be, in that. That's definitely a big risk with the speed that we see out of the 70 car right now after this pit stop. Like you mentioned, over 2 seconds faster, was able to unlap himself from a pretty good distance back. So if I'm the 2 of Greg Evans, I'm screaming to come down pit road at any point in time. I want those fresh tires. I want to minimize the gap that's going to be there. You can see the 70 of Scott Eckert's 28 seconds behind. And I believe if you think back to his pit stop from the time he hit pit road to the time he left, it was right around 35 to 40 seconds. So that's going to be a big gap if that's the case when the 2 car comes back out.
So I just did some math on fuel mileage, and this is me talking, and we all know I am terrible at math, but according to the calculator, you are going to need about 2.5 tanks of fuel. All right, so that would be 2 full stops, and then at least 1 can of gas, a splash and go at the end of this thing, which would be 3 mandatory stops to make it to the end. What the number 40 did, the number 70, what he did pitting on lap 40, that definitely puts him in a guaranteed 4-stop strategy. With Evans coming down pit road right now, I think he can still make it with 1 less stop. So I think we both called it here, Jordan. Evans is just trying to make it on one less fuel run.
It's definitely a good strategy. I mean, 1 less time down pit road, you're going to be roughly 40 seconds you're saving not going down pit road, and that could make the difference at the end of the race. Obviously, he's going to come out probably behind Scott Eckerich here, which is to be expected with the time on pit road. But if you can not go down pit road 1 extra time, then you're going to make all that time back up and then some.
Absolutely. And sometimes when it comes to these situations where drivers are weighing the time they gain on fresh tires versus the time they lose on pit road, it really changes from track to track. Atlanta, I think, is a track where maybe Evans onto something. Maybe he is trying to get this 1 last stop, and he's done the math, and he knows what kind of lap times that 70 is running, and he knows that it's not going to be enough. But he cycled out very far behind that number 70, and I do mean incredibly far. So you got to wonder if he's thinking about that 70 possibly making up enough time on those fresh tires that he can afford that extra stop with how fast he's going. We'll just have to see how that plays out and follow along. None of us have a crystal ball, not even the commentators. So at the end of the day, it's going to come down to who's in front at the end, and really everything before that is just a prelude. So Greg Evans cycling out. Last time he crossed the line, he was in 7th. I think he's going to be a little bit further ahead once he crosses this time. But yeah, Woody Mahan, I believe, is currently in the race lead. And that is because he has not come down pit road. So he's staying out even longer than that number 2. Woody Mahan had a pretty good car tonight. I mean, we watched him battle it out for a third for a number of laps there. Curious to see what he can do. Brian Yazek 2nd. Scott Eckerich is 13 seconds back from the leader, and he's already pitted. So that tells you how much time he is making up on these fresh tires. Of course, he's probably starting to feel a little bit of wear now, but it doesn't matter. He's already made up so much time that it is just completely irrelevant, I think. But Chrobok is still 6 laps down. The playoff hopeful, he is on track, but with that much damage, you got to think that car is not up to snuff. It's not maintaining speed. Greg Evans is P5 right now. They're 31 seconds back. Woody Mahan makes his way down pit road. And while this pit sequence finishes its course here, and everybody gets sorted out where they will run for the next stint, why don't we take in the sights and sounds of Atlanta, Georgia, and bring the noise. And we are back from our Bring the Noise. While we were gone, I've been corrected. A viewer in the chat with a name that I won't even try to pronounce because I'm almost certain to butcher it, corrected me. He said it's not 3 versus 4, it's 2 versus 3 because I was forgetting about the full tank of fuel to start the race. You are absolutely correct. I messed that up. So thank you, viewer, for correcting that. He even put the laps. Eckrich is looking at 40 to 80 to 120. Evans is looking at 54 to 108. So again, thank you for doing my job for me because I'm bad at my job. But you know, I show up, so they let me keep commentating. But yeah, so that's kind of the strategy. Evans is trying to cut one stop off, and it's going to be interesting to see who wins out at the end of the day. It'll be hard to tell before the end of the race really what strategy is going to reign supreme, but for now it looks like pretty much the entire pit sequence has ran its course. Everybody has kind of worked their way down pit road, got their cars sorted out. Scott Eckrich is maintaining the race lead, although Greg Evans is in second, and he has far fresher tires, something to the tune of about 12 laps or so, and he cut down that lead by a second last time around. So Evans is absolutely on the move, trying to regain that lead as the 70 is going to scrape the wall a little bit on the backstretch. No harm, no foul. I don't see any damage. Could have just been a visual bug seeing those sparks fly. But yeah, right now it seems like these strategies are kind of playing out very evenly. Nobody's really getting that massive of an advantage yet, but of course, that is going to change dynamically as the race progresses. Braxton DeWeese. I know we got some Braxton DeWeese fans in chat, so for Braxton Nation, you're going to be pretty happy. That number 5 machine is on the podium there in 3rd place, and he is only about a second behind Greg Evans, so very competitive car. Braxton, again, I've watched him drive in a couple different leagues. First time I ever seen him drive was I was actually spotting for a friend of mine in another league. Wasn't commentating, just acting as a spotter, and I believe Braxton won that race. So I know he is one talented driver, and right now having a good run here at Atlanta. Tim Knott also impressively in 4th, number 41 in that Gunskins Chevrolet. He's having one heck of a night for himself there in top 5. Troy Haight is 5th, and really we're not seeing that much separation among the field, given how few cars there are. I mean, Evans and Braxton are only about 2 seconds apart. Then you got about 6 seconds from Braxton to Tim Knott. And Tim Knott and Troy Haight, they're actually battling it out right now for position. They're within the same second of one another. And then only a couple seconds back to Woody Mahan. So really everything kind of leveled out with these strategies. And just a quick update, we are having a little bit of technical difficulty on Jordan's side. He's been having some severe weather in his area, a lot of wind threatening his power grid, and trust me, I know all too well how uncertain that kind of situation can be. His power flickered a few moments ago while we were doing the Bring the Noise segment, and he will be back momentarily, and then you'll be free of me having to ramble on, which that'll be a relief. But for now, we're just going to keep following along with the race. A little bit of lap traffic for the leader. Didn't really see that one coming as Greg Evans is continuing to cut that lead down. 5 seconds is the gap now, and it was just 8 seconds just a few laps ago. So Greg Evans trying to run him down, but the game that Greg Evans is playing right now is he's trying to catch up to that number 70 before the tire wear plateaus. There's going to come a point about 20 laps into his run, which he is quickly approaching, where his tires and Scott Eckrich's tires are going to be nearly identical in lap times regardless of the difference in when they pit, just because there comes a time where you stop losing time on older tires. It hits a point, doesn't go any further than that, they don't get any worse, and he's quickly approaching that point. So he's going to have to make up this 5 seconds within the next few laps if he wants to be able to challenge for the lead, and then from there it'll all come down to what strategy is superior. As Braxton's still running 3rd, 8 seconds back. Troy Haight's still 4th. Everybody fairly single file. Although we do have a little bit of double file action up in front of the number 2. Mark Myers was just passed by Richard Fletcher, and I believe this is a race for position. Theoretically, this battle between Mark Myers and Richard Fletcher is actually the battle for Lucky Dog. If we were to get a caution, Richard Fletcher right now would be the first car a lap down. Mark Myers is right behind him, also 1 lap down. Again, the likelihood of a caution is pretty much at an all-time low, so I don't think it's something they're racing too hard for, expecting a caution. But you never know. We talked about it earlier, and it holds true, but you never know what's going to happen in stock car racing. You can't just give up and throw your hands in the air because things don't look good. Fortune can come in at any lap, at any point for any of these drivers. So Michael Chrobok maintaining 6 laps down. He's not losing a lot of time to the leader, but again, that's a gap that with the field size we have today is just going to be borderline impossible to overcome. 04 falling back a little bit from the Lucky Dog competition. Richard Fletcher actually turning some pretty good lap times right now, given how old his tires are. He's running 33.3, and Brian Yazik is the last car in the lead lap. He's 29 seconds back. And we have, this is a battle right here. Tim Knott and Woody Mahan. These guys are absolutely duking it out. The 81 trying to get that side draft. And it looks like he will get this side draft. He's ahead of Tim Knott in that 41. He will gain one more position on the scoring pylon. Braxton DeWeese cutting down the gap to the leader a little bit. He was about 8.6 seconds back a couple laps ago. At 72 is going to slide his way into pit road. He is all over the place. That car definitely not handling right. I mean, with all that damage, getting that thing slowed down for pit road is probably nothing short of a nightmare. Can't blame him for that. But as I was saying, Braxton DeWeese actually cut that gap to the leader down by about a second over the last few laps. So maybe some long run speed out of the number 5. Evans also cutting his gap down 3.8 seconds. It was 5 seconds last time we checked. But again, he's only, let's see what lap the number 2 is on. He's on lap 75. He pitted somewhere around lap 53. So he's getting real close to that tire wear plateau. Give it a few more laps, he's not going to be gaining much time on Eckrich by virtue of tires. If he gains any more time on him, it'll just be flat out driving him as opposed to the differential in tire wear. So didn't quite make that gap up before he reached the plateau, but man, so close. And it's impressive to me that these guys could have taken such wildly different strategies, and at the end of the day, it really only separated them by about 3 seconds, and that gap is still diminishing little by little. So very impressive to see. Braxton DeWeese 7.4 seconds back, Troy Haight 11 seconds back. Woody Mahan pulling away from Tim Knott just a little bit there after he was able to make that move. 13.7 seconds back for Woody Mahan from the leader, and Tim Knott 15 seconds back. So pretty kosher. Everything going pretty solidly for these guys. And we're going to do a quick through the field, and hopefully Jordan will be rejoining us by the time we're done with this. Starting out in the first position, Scott Eckrich is leading the way in that number 70. He's taken the strategy of pitting one more time than Greg Evans, and so far it's kept him the lead, but Greg Evans is maintaining second place, and Scott Eckrich, with the penalties that were dealt out, it is kind of mathematically impossible for him to win the championships. He's just here for bragging rights. Bragging rights he will have if he's able to win this race. Right behind him, 2.9 seconds back to be exact, you got Greg Evans, the current points leader. A good run here tonight could definitely lock him into the points championship, and wouldn't matter where he finishes next week at Phoenix. So that's what he's trying to accomplish tonight. And so far, 79 laps in out of 163, he's done everything right, and it looks like he may be bringing home that finish he needs. Braxton DeWeese sitting at third place. He's 7 seconds flat behind our leader, still continuing to slowly close the gap. Little by little, Braxton is kind of on his own, as many are of these drivers. They're not really able to have any drafting partners when we have such a thin field and everybody's so far away. But he's had a fast car all night. If he gets a little bit of luck, maybe we'll find him up with the leaders, battling it out. Definitely has the car to do so. Back in fourth, you got Troy Haight. Now, he started on the pole not because of qualifying, but because our current leader was actually dealt an EOL. Haight was able to make the best of that advantage for a little while. He led the race for a lap or two and then slowly kind of fell through the grid. Maybe the car's not feeling where he wants it to, but either way, he's still running in the top 5, having a solid night for that number 28 machine. Woody Mahan running 5th. He was just battling with Tim Knott not long ago. As we have our leader coming down pit road, that'll be on your screen. Woody Mahan's going to round out your top 5 for the through the field. He would do the top 10, but that would be just about the entire field. That right there, we're on lap 81, so that is the strategy we kind of expected out of the number 70. We kind of expected him to come down on 80, as the viewer in chat specified, and there he is, getting forged fresh tires. And Greg Evans, he's going to have to go a lot further on his fuel run. 70 making his way out of pit road. Now it is kind of a game of what strategies does Braxton DeWeese pull here? Does he try to make this time up by getting a bit of an undercut, because, or at least on Greg Evans, because we know he's got a fast car and he's within distance where he realistically, 5 seconds back from Greg Evans. If he could just get the undercut, come in a couple laps sooner, I believe he's on the same long run strategy that Evans is. If he could do that and manage his fuel, that may be enough to get him up there. And once he's within drafting range, that'll be a whole nother story. Troy Haight currently 3rd as we continue to keep an eye on pit road, but I think a lot of these drivers that are left in the field, they are just as committed to the long run strategy as Greg Evans is. Really, the 70 is kind of the outlier in that situation, and he is taking that extra pit stop that nobody else really wanted to risk taking. Currently 1 lap down from pitting, but if it's anything like the last time, we're going to see him absolutely fly by the competition on these fresher tires. And he is closing in on, I believe, Greg Evans. Right in front of the number 70. He's only got about 10 car lengths to the number 2, who is currently engaged in a bit of a side-by-side battle with number 43, Richard Fletcher. These two are pretty much door-to-door working their way onto the backstretch. Number 2 is going to maybe get that side draft a little bit. And there goes the 70. That didn't take very long. He unlapped himself even quicker than the first run. And I think that tells you right there, that is going to maybe pay off in the long run. It didn't take him long to unlap himself at all. And he just ran the fastest lap of the race as well. So this extra stop, this 3rd stop that he's adding to his strategy, that could be the way to play. As Greg Evans continues to limp around on these older tires, trying to stick to this 2-stop. And Richard Fletcher is, again, the first car 1 lap down, although I think with Greg Evans passing him again, that's going to put him 2 laps down, theoretically. I could be wrong. We'll check when he crosses the line what the timing and scoring says. And nope, he is still just 1 lap down, so he is lucky dog contender at this point. Just a reminder, Adam Jersky, John Eckert, those are 2 drivers behind the wall. Michael Chrobok has a very wounded car, but he has stayed on the track, currently 7 laps down, trying to salvage what he can out of this playoff round of 4. Mark Myers, the 2nd car, 1 lap down behind Richard Fletcher. And looks like Will Worsler connected to the session. He was not in the race, but he is in the session now, probably acting as a spotter for one of his teammates. I know Will Worsler had a few good runs here in the playoffs, but he may be spotting for Fletcher, I'm hearing. So out of the car and up on the spotter stand at the top of the grandstands. Might be a little bit of a new role for Will Worsler. And I'll tell you what, as Greg Evans continues to lead the way, and he has got about another 30 laps, give or take, before he's going to pit. Why don't we, again, take in the sights and sounds of Atlanta and bring the noise one more time.
Thanks, sir.
And we are back here at Atlanta. Nothing really changing in terms of the running order. Everything remaining the same. While we were bringing the noise, Tim Knott did come down pit road. I believe he was one of the only takers during that time period. But quick update on Jordan. It sounds like the power outage is a little bit more severe than initially thought. He had a flicker and it came back on momentarily, and then it went right back out. Which, man, that is soul crushing. I hate when that happens because it gives you the hope of it came back on, everything's fine, and then it shuts off for good, and you're sitting there in the dark thinking, man. So, Jordan, hopefully everything's going well for you. Stay safe, buddy. I know storms like that, especially windstorms, you never really know what's going to happen. They can be kind of scary sometimes. So, stay safe, take care of yourself, and hopefully power situation gets sorted out. In the meantime, I'm Jordan, joined alongside Carlos Acosta, climbing down from the producer's booth, although not really because he's still pushing all the buttons. He'll be multitasking. He's going to help me out here in the booth while he does all the camera work. I don't know how you do it, Carlos.
Oh, I lose about a couple years of my life every time I do a broadcast. But yeah, unfortunately, those are the worst type of power outages because not only do they kind of give you hope, but at the same time, quick flickers like that really wreak havoc on your computers or any electronic system.
Yeah, they can. You got to make sure you got your computer hooked up to a surge protector, and that is a good one at that because sometimes it can really mess up your equipment, your hard drives, your solid states, whatever. But yeah, right now, nothing really changing in the running order. I did see Peter Schwartz in the chat for the live stream. How you doing, Peter? Good to see you. Hopefully one of these days we'll get you back up in the booth for one of these events. But yeah, hopefully you're enjoying the stream and having a good time with the rest of them. Greg Evans still leading the way, and Braxton DeWeese 7 seconds back. Troy Haight in third. He's 9 seconds back. Scott Eckrich on the lead lap. He's 18 seconds back, and again, he's got the freshest tires out of anybody. Evans closing in on that pit sequence as we continue. But I tell you what, Carlos, a race like this, it poses kind of an additional challenge to these drivers that you don't always see. You know, when it comes to stock car racing, the prime aspect of it, the primary draw, is that it's one of the closest forms of motorsports. You're always around somebody. You're always in competition. It's very much a contact sport, and so you're always on the ball. You're focusing on the track, on the cars around you, on what your car is doing. You're thinking about your pit sequence, your strategy, all of that stuff, and it kind of keeps you mentally sharp, right? But then you get in these situations where you got a thin field, and then that thin field got even thinner through a few incidents that didn't cause a caution. Now, everybody that is left on the track, they're in no man's land. They got nobody in their windshield. They got nobody in their mirror. And when that happens, sometimes you let yourself start to slip a little bit momentarily. You have these momentary lapses in concentration, and it actually makes it harder to race sometimes when you're on your own for a long time.
I agree, and that's usually when a caution-free race might end up being a caution-filled race towards the latter half of it. So you got to make sure that, yeah, while there's not too many people out here on the track, and there's still quite a bit of laps, it's still something you have to take care of, having that stamina, the mental stamina, physical stamina, to be able to still compete at the end, and that's kind of what separates a lot of these guys from contending for wins, especially when races get drawn out and get towards the middle. Unfortunately, I'm somebody that likes to daydream a lot, so sometimes I'll forget what I'm doing, and then I'll find myself either in the wall or just running some really slow lap times, which probably explains why I'm not really a championship contender. But guys like Evans, Braxton DeWeese, and majority of the drivers out here tonight, they have the mental fortitude to be able to to push and continue through these trying times, honestly. As Peter's out here giving us zingers left and right. Peter, in case you didn't know, Andre, and anybody else out there, Peter's got a bunch of work that's going on, and the next year he and his wife are going to be expecting their first one, so going to be seeing a little bit less of Peter from now on, but that doesn't mean he's going away anytime soon. He's just going to be more tired.
More tired indeed. Well, I didn't know that. Congratulations, Peter, on the kid. That's probably very stressful, but also probably very exciting. So wish you the best with that, and yeah, enjoy it, man. That's definitely something that I think comes a little bit before sim racing. You know, you got to put real life and family first. So that's awesome. Congratulations. On the track, nothing really changing. That's going to be the reoccurring theme. I'm a broken record at this point, but the only thing that's changing is Scott Eckhrich's gap to the leader. He's doing exactly what he did last time around. He's just running down everybody on those fresher tires, trying to use this strategy to its absolute maximum possible advantage. And it seems to be working out pretty well. Braxton DeWeese 8 seconds back from the leader. Didn't really gain a whole lot on pitting strategy, but I'll tell you what, Carlos, Braxton is a car that if we were to get a caution, if this was to go yellow at any point for any reason, which again, very unlikely, but if we were to get a caution, I would be watching that number 5 because he's shown me through the lap times that he can run, especially over the course of a long green flag run. He's got just as much speed in that machine as the leaders. The only thing is he doesn't have the track position. He fell back a little early on, and now he's kind of off on his own, and it's going to be difficult to make that up under green. He gets a caution. He very well could be a contender for the win.
Yeah, and just want to make sure I had all my settings up there correctly. And it's not that he dropped back in the beginning of the race. We saw him go out and try to run last second qualifying attempt that unfortunately did not pan out for him. He ran his warm-up lap and then the first time lap. And then he fell just 1.5 seconds shy of completing that second time lap, which would have seen him possibly contend maybe for, I don't think he was fast enough to get the pole because he didn't have the purple sector, but possibly second or for sure the top 5. He has that speed. So he started second to last in 11th. And since, green flag the whole way, all the way, he's driven himself up to second right now. So anybody's going to benefit a lot from a caution. It is, in fact, going to be Braxton DeWeese, just like you mentioned. But the question is, even with a caution, can he be able to do anything to possibly get the win from Greg Evans or Scott Eckrich?
Restarts here, I think, restarts are always chaotic, Carlos. I mean, I think you know that as well as I do at any given track. But at a track that's so multi-groove, we saw it right at the start of the race. Greg Evans was able to stay side by side with Troy Haight, and they were side by side for the first lap and a half. This is really one of the only mile-and-a-half tracks on the circuit where that kind of competition is really possible early on in a run. And what it does is it just keeps everybody so close with this multi-groove because everybody has a lane to take. Nobody has to concede. Nobody has to fall back. They can just put their car where the other guy isn't, and they're going to have just as much pace. So it keeps everybody in that hornet's nest. And when you're in that situation, all it takes is one good side draft to get out in front of somebody, get that clean air. And I think that's what set Braxton back. He's got such a fast car, but because he started further back on the grid, because he got on track for qualifying just a little bit too late and missed out on posting that fast lap, he's never had the advantage of clean air, not one time in this entire race. Whereas the number 2 and the number 70, they had that advantage. They got out front, and they were able to use that to their advantage. But if Braxton gets that clean air, he may even have a little bit more speed that we haven't even seen yet.
Mm-hmm. We got Peter out here in the chat. While he's still tired, what a trooper, Peter. Thank you so much out here promoting sponsors and checking out all those websites and links. Remember, tonight's race is sponsored by Homenet Hosting. This is the Homenet Hosting Land of 250. And you can find a link to check out their website there, courtesy of Peter Short. So thank you so much, Peter. And we miss you and everything about you. And hopefully we'll get you back at some point. But right now, you got far more important things to take care of. No major developments going on track right now. Greg Evans is still pulling away from Troy Haight. Let's take a look at the last couple laps. I'm expecting all reds, and actually, I'm a little surprised there. I would have thought that Greg Evans would have been pulling away the whole time, but it seems like Troy Haight is able to pull something. It seems like almost every other lap he's able to get something, although unfortunately he loses it the next lap. And this last time by, it looks like advantage goes into Greg Evans' side there for a little bit. But I mean, it's not over, but I just don't think that Troy Haight has the pace right now. As when did Troy Haight get second place? Now that I think about it,
just a moment ago, DeWeese has been falling back a little bit, and I think it was just a couple laps ago. Troy Haight actually made the move on DeWeese. I think that tire wear is really starting to get to that number 5. Maybe that speed early on is kind of coming back to bite him. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Woody Mahan not far behind DeWeese, so if DeWeese falls too much further back, we're going to see the number 84 make a move for it. Eckrich up to fourth now. Actually, Eckrich got around Mahan, 13 seconds back from the leader. He's not actually gaining too much time anymore on Evans, but he is still slightly faster than the cars in front of him. A little bit faster than DeWeese, a little bit faster than Haight on these fresher tires. So again, the strategy seems to be working out the way that he was hoping. And there's not much racing left. For the number 2, it's going to be one more pit stop. And for Evans, it looks like it's going to be 2 more pit stops. He'll probably come down somewhere around lap 120. But Greg Evans, he's quickly approaching his pit window. Right now, realistically, he could pit, I believe, and make it to the end if we're looking at your average mile and a half fuel mileage of about 60 to 65 laps. But again, he's going to try to run that thing dry and give himself the best tires as possible at the end of this event. One thing that's surprising me, Carlos, is we're not seeing a lot of cars get tight out of turn 2 after the start of the race. Maybe it's just a clean air. Everybody's on their own and they don't have that aero push that's sucking them up to that safer barrier. But everybody seems to be really comfortable with their cars. We don't see anybody sliding around like you typically would at Atlanta. And we don't see anybody really plowing up the corners. It seems like whatever this setup is that's been provided to these guys, it's a really good setup, as I believe that is the number 41 making his way down pit road. Sorry, that's the 43 making his way with Richard Fletcher. And the 84, Woody Mahan, making his way down. So these guys theoretically should be good to the end.
Oh, yeah, for sure. If you're mentioning an average for mile and a half, says the leader's going to go down pit road, a little sketchy, but he's able to make it work. You're mentioning about mid-60s. We have 52 laps to go, so these guys are usually, I have strong belief that they're good to go from now. The window has been open for just a little bit, and we're now seeing a bunch of drivers go down pit road, but now I'm going to see if Greg Evans maybe did anything there. I think he's fine, but, doesn't hurt to take a gander and see if he's going to be held up a little bit or not.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if he gets out of his pit stall right away. The left sides go up, so 4 fresh tires as expected. Oh, he's going to get out right away, so no penalty. But, man, that was one fast entry. That was a close call.
That was indeed, and that's something that I've kind of noticed with Sim Racers Club, is that these guys, a lot of them, they're practicing their pit road entry. We may not be seeing it in practice, but they're practicing that pit road entry because every single race, one of us is always like, how did that driver not get a black flag? And we just think they're going too fast, but they're nailing these pit stops. And, the evidence is clear. They're fast in pit stops.
Yeah, we've seen that twice so far. Obviously, Scott Eckrich earlier in the race gave us a bit of a scare. He clipped the grass coming into the pits, and I kind of thought he was going to get an unsafe entry penalty, but no, he was all right, and he was able to get out just in time, really riding that fine line between legality and penalty. And then Greg Evans right there, of course, locking him up, getting a little bit sideways. But hey, if you're going to lock up the tires, doing it right before you get fresh tires is probably the best time to do it. So I think you're right. They're probably practicing those pit road entries because there is a lot of time to gain or lose in pit road when it comes to your entry and even your exit. That's something we don't talk about a lot, but as far as iRacing is concerned, you have to blend onto the track on the backstretch. So that means you got to take the apron through the first corner, and that's kind of to avoid any Kevin LePage situations. You don't want anybody merging in the quad oval or in the middle of the corner and causing massive pileups. But that apron, you don't got a lot of grip down there. The car can get really sideways. There's even a bit of a progressive banking on the apron, one part of your car maybe a little higher in the air, and that all adds up to a car that's very sketchy to drive. And whoever's braver on exit, whoever can get more throttle a little bit quicker and get through the gears quicker is going to gain a lot of time coming out of the pits. So with these guys practicing that, it does not surprise me because it really could be make or break, especially in a race that stays green flag the whole time.
I'm getting some word that we have another driver that has taken their vehicle behind the wall and possibly into their hauler, and that is number 55 of Brian Yazik, shown out of the racetrack at the moment, and it looks like that car is being loaded up into the hauler as we speak.
Unfortunate for the 55, he had a pretty good car. We saw him battling up front towards the beginning of this race. Of course, that's something we could say about a lot of these guys. The field has been so small. I think everybody's had their shot up front. Everybody's had their chance at the lead, especially early on. They were shuffling positions so much. But we do got a bit of a gaggle of cars here spearheaded by that 84 Woody Mahan, and he's got Troy Haight behind him. And Haight, I think, is kind of an underdog here. He's maybe not an underdog, I should say a dark horse. He's not led too many laps in this race, but it seems like when it matters, when he's racing the competition, he's got a lot of speed in that 28, and he can make the moves when he needs to. So he's been fun to watch tonight alongside Woody Mahan. Of course, he's been a driver in that 84 that's been trying to really end out the season strong, and he's been doing a good job of it. He's really come to life at the tail end of this season, and I think that's pretty popular with fans and drivers alike. You know, when somebody kind of struggles all season long and they're kind of out of form, and then you see that comeback where they're back to where you kind of expect them to be, and even excelling your expectations. That's always great to see.
Also great to see that even though we've gone caution-free the whole race and we have limited participants out here tonight, 120 laps, a lot of people are spread out, but there's still a battle going on for 4th place between the number 84, Woody Mahan, and the number 28, Troy Haight. They've been side by side for the past 2 laps, and I thought the advantage was going to go to Troy Haight, but it looks like Woody Mahan's been able to finesse that outside line and hold on to that 4th place position.
Yeah, he held on to it, really played some great defense there. Woody Mahan's pretty good at that. We've seen him play defense in a few different races, and seems to be a skill that is in his wheelhouse. So he's going to hold on. Tim Knott still on the podium in that 41. Of course, we have Gunskins in the chat, and they're obviously going to be pulling for that 41. Probably pretty happy to see him up in the top 3. It's been a great night for that car and that driver. But right now, the picture remaining fairly similar. Greg Evans, after that pit stop, has worked his way back up into 2nd a while ago. And ever since he did so, he's been slowly pulling up to Scott Eckert. He's still got a large gap to overcome. But we do have
Scott
the leader in pit road. Well, if it wasn't an unsafe pit road entry last time, Carlos, I think that's got to be.
No, I think he may still be fine. Yeah, he clipped the grass, but I think he was already in pit road when he clipped the grass. We'll take a look against this. Cut over to the multicam and continue that battle going out there. Advantage to 28 now. Troy Haight has gotten that 4th place position, soon to be 3rd place. There it goes. But let's take a look. I know I changed cameras on me, and he is off to the races. No penalty there for the number 70. As I gotta say. As much as I was praising their practice, don't think that was what the number 70 was intending on doing.
No, I don't think you practice for that. I think that's a white knuckle in the steering wheel and praying to every entity there is that you don't wreck. Man, what a show Eckert just put on pit road tonight. 2 close calls and no penalties. That, to me, I think is the standout for this race, is the fact that we've had 3 drivers locking up the tires, getting sideways, waving to the fans in the outfield grandstands, and they still haven't got a penalty. So very impressive.
You mean infield grandstands?
A little bit of luck. No, outfield. He was pointed to the right, somewhere you don't ever want to be pointed on pit road.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, he was waving to the infield grandstands too. I mean, he was pointed both directions for a little while there. It was not a fun ride for Scott Eckert.
Braxton DeWeese has just gotten past Tim Knott there for 4th place, as he's not going to be tracking down the number 84 of Woody Mahan, and then eventually, if he doesn't hit the outside wall there, tracking down number 28 of Troy Haight. As some of these guys do also have to go down pit road at some point. Actually, no, they don't need to. I think the only driver that has to go down pit road right now is Tim Knott, who last went down on lap 87.
So this could be the race to the end for a lot of these guys. We're on lap 125 of 163. We do have one car peeling down to pit road. I believe that was the 04 Mark Myers, so he had to pit. But that should settle out this pit sequence here, Carlos. And now the question is, can Scott Eckert catch up to Greg Evans? Can he use this strategy the way that he planned on doing so and catch up to this number 2? Because right now, Greg Evans has a 12-second lead. He's good on fuel to the end of this race. Troy Haight is a ways back, as is Woody Mahan. We've actually got a pretty good gaggle of cars brewing back there. Troy Haight, Woody Mahan, and Braxton DeWeese are all within 2 seconds of each other. But yeah, a massive lead for the number 2. Question is, what can Eckert do about it?
Unfortunately, I don't think he's close enough. like, yeah, right now he's going to be running faster lap times, but eventually those tires are going to kind of even out within themselves, and I just think he's too far away, honestly. Being plus 22, 23, I just don't think there's enough laps and enough tires for that to really work out for him right now.
Yeah, it always is a gamble. When you do that and you add an extra pit stop onto your strategy, that's kind of betting on yourself. You're betting that you can use those fresh tires well enough and that they're going to be fast enough that you're going to make up the time that you lose coming down to get them. And it is a risk. It really depends on the track. It depends on the driver. Obviously, Eckert is a very talented driver. A lot of wins this season. Always see him running up front. But it's such a difficult thing to do to make up that time. I mean, one of my few wins, I don't do much racing on iRacing, but ironically, but one of the few wins I have came at Las Vegas in the Truck Series. It was a 60-lap race. You could make it on fuel, but a few of the drivers that were actually faster than me, they opted to pit halfway for tires because they thought they could make up that time in 30 laps and they could get back around me on those fresh tires. I stayed out the whole race, and I ended up winning by just a little bit because of it. It's one of those situations where sometimes the safest strategy is the best strategy, especially when you got a small field size, things like this. And I think Greg Evans taking away one stop that he didn't need to take, it was the safe strategy, and right now it's working out for him. I'm kind of with you there, Carlos. I'm not sure Eckert is close enough, but Eckert has surprised us before. He's a driver that you never really know what he's got in his pocket.
Plus, even though we only got 9 drivers out on track, that doesn't mean we're locked in for a caution-free race. Anything can happen, and if caution comes out, we got a whole different story going on.
Absolutely. A yellow flag would entirely change the picture of this race, and it would really make it, I would say, anybody in the top 6 of this game, because all 6 of those drivers are on the lead lap. Richard Fletcher would get the lucky dog, so that'd actually be 7 drivers on the lead lap, and they'd be able to come down, get fresh tires. I believe everybody has tires left behind the pit wall. So with fresh tires and a short run at Atlanta, it kind of becomes a plate race at that point, Carlos, because if we got a caution now, they'd only have to start lifting at the tail end of that race. They would be wide open for the majority of what's left, and that means it would come down to drafting, side drafting, and of course car placement, knowing where to put your car, what moves to make, when to be aggressive and when not to be. And it kind of changes what skill set is required, from outright speed to awareness and how tactical you can be.
That's true indeed. As this battle continues on here, as I realize I gotta talk into the microphone if I want to be heard. As Mahan and the number 5 Braxton DeWeese is currently battling out there for that 3rd place spot. That podium finish right there with just about 32 or 31 and a half laps to go. Number 5 is going to be looking down the inside, and here's turns 3 and 4. Side by side they go down there. Continues advantage going over to the 84 in the middle of the corner, surprisingly, and on the drive off. The 84 is going to be able to hold off that challenge from DeWeese as he tries to maybe possibly run down Troy Haight. Although I do believe Troy Haight has a faster car at the moment. As we saw that challenge between those 2 drivers a couple laps earlier, but right now it's single file driving once again.
Yeah, DeWeese was kind of forced to concede that position, but he's not falling back. I mean, he's not going to let Woody Mahan run away with it. Through 3 and 4, he actually closed in a little bit there. He hugged the bottom lane, found some grip, closed the gap. Now he's got the draft, which is going to pull him right up to the bumper. I mean, he should be right with them when they come into turn 1, and they do have a car in front of them, Troy Haight, which they are well within drafting range of. So I think we're going to see the draft bring these cars together, and we may have a 3-car battle, which it's really impressive. The fact that we are 134 laps in, we've not had one caution, and these guys are still only separated by about a second from Haight back to the number 5, Braxton DeWeese, and they're fighting for a podium. If you can't win the race, finishing on the podium is not half bad either. All these guys want to finish as well as they can, so it'll be a bit of a battle as the number 5 is closed in on the bumper of the 84, but now he's facing the additional challenge of the dirty air, the aero push. His car is not going to handle as well when he's right up on the bumper of the 84. So, the question is, what does he do to overcome that? Does he try to switch lanes and run where the 84 isn't running? It looks like that's actually what he's doing. Coming through 3 and 4, he's going to run in the middle, and Woody Mahan's going to run down low. And I think that helped him. Look at this run he's getting through the quad oval here, Carlos. He's going to close in again. If you just get a slightly bigger run and get that side draft, he may have another chance at getting back into third.
Yeah, I think the only way he can really approach anybody with this package, especially this late in the run, is, well, first of all, don't get loose and career momentum, but also you're going to have to play some 4D chess. You have to kind of predict what the other person's going to do. And, well, here's the thing. There are two types of people, all right? There are the people who think that rock, paper, scissors is a game of luck, and there are those who knows that that is not the case. And you have to understand that even though you're taking a guess of which way it's going to go, if you really know what you're doing and you study the person, you're going to have the ability to play skill here and be able to do something. Just like some professional rock, paper, scissors players is able to use skill and math knowledge. As I can't remember what that word is. Probability, there we go. The probability of what someone's gonna do. You gotta study the driver's antics. You gotta study the way the person's looking, the way their hand is shaking, everything. And before you commit, you just gotta get all that information, process it, and while there is some luck, you gotta determine, all right, he's gonna go low, I'm gonna go high, I'm gonna throw rock, because he's gonna throw paper.
I gotta ask, I have to ask, is there actual, like, professional rock, paper, scissors leagues? Is that a thing?
It is a game of skill. It is a game of skill.
I mean, I know it's a game of skill. I never really thought about like a pro league for it, but I guess there's a pro league for everything.
Guarantee you there is.
I do know. I remember one time, and we're getting a little bit off topic here, but you know, we got a little bit of separation. We can afford this. I do know that I was down a rabbit hole one night on the internet, and I did find a video of a national Connect 4 championship, and there was like 2,000 people that showed up at this convention center to play Connect 4, and that blew my mind because I never even prior to that considered the fact that that could be a competitive game that people dedicated a lot of time to. But that's the beauty of the world that we live in. There's just so many different things to do, so many different hobbies that people partake in, whether it's sim racing, Connect 4, or rock, paper, scissors. There's probably somebody out there that is just about as passionate about it as you are. So that's fun. But this battle right here, still continuing. The number 5 not getting away, or not letting the 84 get away. It's just been a matter of trying to get that run, and it's been almost frustrating to watch, Carlos, because you mentioned it. He got loose and killed his momentum when he almost had the run to make the move, and he's done that a couple times. Every time he's got the big run, he just gets a little bit loose, which is surprising to me because you'd think following that 84, and especially at Atlanta where the car tends to get tight on the long run, you wouldn't really see anybody fighting loose. But that number 5 right there coming out of the corner, you can see the rear end trying to stick out as he's actually in danger. Oh, there goes Scott Eckridge. Okay, so this is for position. Scott Eckridge is going to move down low. I was using the chase cam, and I seen that blue nose sticking beneath the number 5. Eckridge is going to try to get around him. He's been on these tires for a while now, so he's not going to be obscenely fast compared to the rest of these guys, but he should have an advantage. And that's unfortunate for the 5 because it's going to split them up, and it's going to make it a lot harder. Whoa, as we get the slide job of all slide jobs. Braxton DeWeese fighting back on the low line, a little bit loose. 70 stays on the high line. They're door-to-door, headed into 3 and 4. This is allowing Woody Mahan to pull away a little bit. Braxton hanging tight to that white line, gets a little bit tight. He's going to slide up. In the 7, he's going to have to run a high line. And he is clear, finally. So, man, a couple slide drops being thrown there, Carlos.
Yeah, that was a major advantage there for the 70 and the exit of 3 and 4, running that outside line. And the 70 chose to run that outside line again, and Braxton DeWeese decided to follow. Unfortunately, that was not the move there, as he's going to be losing some time getting mixed up in that dirty air. Of course, the number 84, Woody Mahan, is happy to see these two guys battling, and he'll be like, hey, you guys go ahead and battle for 20 more laps. And, you know, he ain't going to complain about that, but right now it's single foul once again. The number 70, Scott Eckridge, has cleared Braxton DeWeese, and he's more than likely going to be running down the back of the number 84, Mahan, in a couple laps. And, well, I think it ain't a secret. The number 70 is fast, and I would say he's faster than the number 5 of Braxton DeWeese. So I do think that Woody Mahan may be in trouble and could potentially lose a podium here to that number 70. I don't believe anybody will have anything to do with catching up to number 2, Greg Evans, but I still think that number 70 might just be able to get second place and make it a 1-2 finish for playoff drivers.
He absolutely might, and I gotta say I'm surprised. I really thought those fresh tires with an extra stop were going to be more valuable for the number 70. I didn't expect the gap to be 15 seconds coming into lap 1 of 46 by any means, but that's the thing. You never really know how it's going to play out. Greg Evans, like you said, he's got such a massive lead. I don't think anybody can catch up to him, but again, it's one of those things where these guys are still going to try to finish as well as they can, especially the number 70 who has such a fast car. He's been so fast all night long. So they're going to battle it out. They don't care that number 2 is really set sail. That's not where their focus is. Their focus is on the car directly in front of them, as they are kind of single file right now. And I'm noticing that number 5 starting to lose a little bit of speed on the long run. I got to wonder what's going on with that team, that the long run speed has just been a little bit lackluster. He's so fast in the short run. And he's been so consistent. It's not really a driver issue. It just seems like the tire wear on that number 5 is incredibly excessive, which is holding him back. But still, even so, he's in the top 5 on the lead lap. 70 not closing in on Woody Mahan quite as quick as I thought, Carlos. I mean, the gap has remained at about 4 car lengths, and I got to wonder, is Mahan just waiting for the right opportunity, or is that car starting to get away from him?
It could be a mixture of both. We saw the 5 was actively working on Mahan and trying to get past him for multiple laps. And the latter part of that battle, we ended up mentioning how loose he would be getting. And as he was getting challenged and passed by the 70, we would be seeing a bunch of micro adjustments in the middle and the exit of the corners. All those little things, the excessive tire wear that the 5 is getting, of course, it's all based on the driver. Everybody out here is running the same setup with essentially the same car. So the number 5 of Braxton DeWeese was unable to save his tires as good as the 70 and the 84, and it could just have been because maybe he got a little bit impatient or some other factor, but him being unable to pass the 84 Woody Mahan is what I believe has costed him that chance at a podium.
That absolutely could be the case, but this battle for third is heating up just as we were talking about it. 70 is going to make the move down low. He got the side draft headed into the corner. Now he's going to get clear, try to throw another slider just like he threw on Braxton, and it seems like it's working out. So back on the podium, the number 70, but the number 70 is not gaining at all to the leader. It's been a 15-second gap pretty much consistently for the last, I would say, 5 or 6 laps. So not gaining much. The dirty air, not his friend, and even if he gets up there and passes Troy Haight, he does not have time on his side. We're on lap 150. The leader is coming up to lap 151 here, and we only got about 14 laps left, so he would have to be over a second a lap faster, and I just don't see that happening unless we get a caution.
No, not at all. I'm sure those tires have equaled out by this point. Whatever advantage he had is gone now. I haven't questioned Evans losing his lead based on speed. But like I said, I do believe Scott Eckrich may be able to do something there with Troy Hay and get a second place finish, although that is the only position I see possibly changing anytime soon, or possibly at the end of the race. I just think Eckrich still has speed in his car, and while it's not as fast as before, when he gets there, he's making moves relatively quickly. Of course, he was behind Woody Mahan for quite a bit of laps. Not too many, but he was behind him. Of course, the moment he made an attempt to pass him and drove on the inside line, he made it work. So the number 70 is doing an absolutely amazing job of keeping his tires under him, managing that tire wear, and when he has to attack, he's making it work. He's making it count. It's, what they say in combat. If you can't beat your opponent on I forgot what the term is, but I think the point is, if you have to attack, it's better to attack once than attack multiple times.
Absolutely, I would agree, and he has done such a phenomenal job on the offense all night long, and he's had to. That's the thing. Like he started at a disadvantage. He got that EOL, had to start at the back of the field, and so immediately he had to turn on that sort of offensive mindset where he's got to pass people, he's got to side draft them, he's got to be on the lookout for anybody to open the door, and as soon as they open it, he's got to go. And that's how it's been for him since the very beginning. And that never stopped because with the strategy he chose, taking an extra pit stop, 3 instead of 2, that meant that he was going to put himself behind a lot of other cars that stayed out on the track. So that meant more passing, more overtaking. So really this entire race has just worked to refine his offensive abilities and his overtaking tactics. He's just done a phenomenal job all night long. Unfortunately, it was the strategy that let him down, I think, ultimately, because when it comes to pace, I think he is near identical with Greg Evans. I mean, there's a couple laps where Evans is faster, then there's a couple laps where Eckert is faster, but overall, I think it evens out to where they are just right in line with one another. The only difference is the strategy they chose. And right now, Greg Evans is the one leading the race, and seems like he's the one that played the cards right, but it's impossible to know. You don't have some sort of algorithm that tells you exactly how many seconds you're going to lose and exactly how many seconds you're going to make up on fresh tires mathematically to tell you the best strategy. It kind of comes down to winging it. And so you make moves, you try to do what you think is best, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
I would like to point out that type of telemetry does exist in technology. However, it is not free, and it is still theoretical at best. So it's never an obsolete. But I mean that's the type of technology the professionals out in the Cup Series are using. However, that is something that is not for consumer hands right now. But hey, one day.
Yeah, they have it in F1. I know they show it on the graphics for Formula One sometimes, but I was just talking more in regards to sim racing. I don't think any of these guys have their hands on technology like that because it's pretty advanced, complicated algorithms, and like you said, even then, it's a guess, it's a theory. It's watching Formula One. Oftentimes, what they say is the time they're going to lose and the time they're going to make up. It's very rarely accurate. So.
Yeah,
really, even though you kind of do,
there are humans that are piloting these machines, and humans, as good as somebody gets, are never perfect.
Yeah, there's going to be every lap is going to be different. You're never going to hit your marks exactly the same every single lap, and in a race that goes on for hours, those little differences in lap times add up over the course of the entire event. So. Yeah, it's just one of those things where your best bet is just to wing it. Do what you're comfortable with, what you think is going to be the optimal strategy, and see if it works. But I'll tell you what, Woody Mahan is impressing me because I really thought Eckert was going to pull away from him once he made that pass, but it has not happened, Carlos. He is right there on the bumper of the 70. It seems like he's actually got a little bit more corner entry speed, and then that 70 pulls away as they exit because he's running that slightly higher line. But ultimately, lap times are just about the same between this pair, and if that number 70 opens the door for even a second, I think Woody Mahan's going to strike, try to get back on that podium. In the meantime, our leader just took lap 160 at the stripe, and so he only has 4 more times around this track, and he can afford to take it easy. He doesn't got to push that car at all. 14 seconds back to second place. At this point, I think he could pace around the track and still bring home that trophy.
Well, there's really no risk right now going on with any of these drivers right now. Everybody here can make it on fuel. While the chances of there being a caution is low, it is not zero, just like the chances of you being killed by a cow are low, but not zero. So anything can change if caution comes out. It's going to be completely different ballgame here. But with the way it's going, it's unlikely to happen. And we may be seeing another victory for the 2 of Evans, as he's looking to maybe lock up that championship here tonight. And just forgo Phoenix. Don't worry about that new track. He's trying to go in there just sipping on martinis and listening to some old jams, while the rest of the field is frantically working up a sweat and practicing for the rest of the tracks, for the final track.
That could be the case, and I believe that would make Evans a 2-time consecutive champ. He did come into this season the defending champion, and 2 in a row, what an accomplishment that would be, and it's looking like he's trying to lock that up. But again, 2 to go. Never know what's going to happen. You talked about your chances of being killed by a cow. Sometimes things aren't what they seem. Vending machines kill more people a year than sharks. That's a fun fact for you all at home.
I got a bone to pick with that. People think sharks are terrifying. Sharks are awesome. All right, they're not going to do anything to you. They may bite you, but that's it. They'll realize, oh, you're not a seal, and then they'll let you go. So yeah, I love sharks. Sharks are cool. Don't you know? They're not vicious creatures.
But speaking of vicious, the performance out of that number 2 has been vicious because he is on the white flag lap coming through 3 and 4 for the final time tonight. And Greg Evans, with this win here at Atlanta, presuming he makes it to the stripe, is likely going to lock down the championship unofficially via the points. And there he goes. Greg Evans wins here at Atlanta. And he is going to be bringing home that trophy to the sponsors, to the team. Troy Haight looking like he's going to lock down second. He's coming to the stripe right now, and he's got a fairly large advantage over Eckrich. But Eckrich, through it all, a lot of adversity this race. There he is, crossing the stripe on the podium. So, it's probably not where he wanted to finish. Everybody on the track wants to win, but when you pass as many cars as Eckrich did, when you take a gamble like Eckrich did, anytime you finish on the podium, that's got to be a good night. DeWeese finishing 5th, right behind Woody Mahan in 4th. Richard Fletcher finishes 6th. Tim Knott 7th. Mark Meyer is going to finish in 8th in the 04. And Michael Chrobok, the last car running on track, he crosses the stripe 8 laps down in P10. But the number 2 going to burn it to the ground and celebrate what is likely a championship. But again, unofficial. There are, I believe, technically still some absolutely absurd circumstances that could happen. That would maybe allow another driver to take it from him, but not looking likely. There is the final running order in its entirety, all 12 cars, so you know where your favorite driver finished on track. Of course, 3 DNFs. We had Brian Yauzik, Adam Jersky, John Eckert take it behind the wall. A little early, unfortunately, but now we're going to try to get things set up to have some interviews with our top 3 finishers. And I'll tell you what, I think Greg Evans is going to be pretty elated for his interview. He's looking pretty excited out there. These are the kind of donuts you do when you know that you've won the championship. He's all over. He's doing donuts in the quad oval. He's doing donuts down by the entrance of pit road. Now he's going back to the start-finish line. He's probably going to give the fans some more over there. But we do have our third...
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say we do have our third-place finisher in the waiting room, so we'll bring him up, see what he's got to say.
Yep, I'm just going to be signing off for the rest of the broadcast, guys. A pleasure filling in for Jordan there, as I'm going to let Andre take over the final interviews and then wrap it up for us tonight.
Scott Eckert, you got a copy?
Yep.
Scott, you put on one heck of a show for us. If there was a driver of the day vote, you'd get mine because you passed so many cars out there. You started towards the back of the field with that EOL, passed the cars then, and then you put yourself on a strategy where you had one more stop than a lot of the other guys. Passed the cars then and worked your way up into the podium. Looked like you were having a lot of fun out there tonight.
Yeah, it was kind of the idea. I knew short pitting with the extra pit cycle. I knew from the beginning it wasn't a winning strategy, but I thought, hey, caution cycles, whatnot. Who knows how to land right? And obviously, I didn't have anything for Greg. Man, that car was just tight. For Atlanta, I kind of expected it to be a little more loose. So it was not really something I excel at dealing with. So I'm glad to get out of this with the top 3, really.
Yeah, a phenomenal run. Not that often a driver has to pass that many cars and to come out on the podium. Very impressive. Now, you did have a few scary moments on pit road. A couple of the times you clipped the grass and had to lock up the tires. Tell me about that. How scary was that?
So that was perfect entry. Any entry that isn't a penalty is a perfect entry. I was pretty convinced that 2 of them were going to be penalties, so it's hard to get a thing stopped.
Yeah, it definitely looked like it was fighting you, not wanting to slow down, but we were watching with bated breath every time you pulled into the stall, wondering if that was going to be a penalty or not, but like you said, anytime you don't get penalized, I mean, I got to say, you probably got the fastest pit road entry, legal pit road entry of the race twice over. So that was a lot of fun to watch. Anyways, Scott, congratulations on your podium. Is there anybody you'd like to shout out or thank?
Yeah, sure. You guys up in the booth, and obviously LPM and Graphics LC Motorsports, and everyone else for putting this league on every week.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Scott, and good luck next week.
Thank you.
Scott Eckrich out of the booth. Now we're going to have a word with our second place finisher, Troy Haight. Let's see what he's got to say. He had a bit of an up and down night. Troy Haight, you got a copy?
I got you.
Well, Troy, you put on quite a show for us down there. You were through the field, back through the field, and then you raced your way back towards the front and ultimately wound up on the podium. Looked like the car was real comfortable out there. Tell me about your race.
Yeah, I had a good starting spot and then fell back a little bit, like you said, and just kind of managed the race, ran my pace, and missed some wrecks on the backstretch there, and came home second.
Now, you already mentioned, you just missed those wrecks on the backstretch. How scary was that? Everything seemed pretty calm and kosher, very small field size. Don't really expect chaos like that. And then there you are. You find smoke in your windshield, and you're just trying to avoid it.
Yeah, I'm surprised the caution didn't come out once or twice there, but was able to avoid it and move on.
Absolutely. Well, it was a great run out there. Congratulations on P2. Is there anybody that you'd like to shout out or thank?
Yeah, I want to thank Woodfather, my dad for watching, Sam for the running the league. He does a good job, and you guys in the broadcast booth.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, Troy. And again, congratulations.
Thanks.
All right. Second place finisher, Troy, out of the booth. We don't have Greg in the waiting room yet, so we'll give him a minute. He's probably celebrating with the team there. He's got a lot to celebrate, a lot to talk about. Can't blame him there. So we'll just give him one moment. And while we wait, I want to thank everybody who tuned in to 3 Wide TV for the Homenet hosting Atlanta 250. Very interesting race tonight, I would say. And there he is, Greg Evans, in the waiting room. Let's bring up the race winner. Greg Evans, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Greg, what a race. It was between you and the number 70. Both of you guys were on different strategies. You took one less pit stop than him. And ultimately, you came out on top. You got the win in dominating fashion. Tell me about it.
We just had a good night. Started up front. This whole year, we just haven't really started up front at all. We've had just really bad qualifying effort. But I'm not sure, why Scott dropped to the back there, but starting up front definitely helped us out. Was able to kind of take our time the first 20, 30 laps, and then I kind of stuck with my strategy of pitting about every 55 laps to kind of break it up a little bit. But I was honestly a little worried there when I seen Scott, pit around like 42, 43, and then how much time he was making up, and then how it was all cycling through. I really didn't know in my head how it was gonna play out. I thought it was gonna be okay, but just wasn't sure. But yeah, just tried to run a good smooth race all night long. Didn't have any trouble. I hated to see just an 11 car not show up, and I know Chrobok had a rough night, but man, kind of breathe easy going into Phoenix, hopefully with the points championship.
Yeah, basically right now, unofficially, the way the points look, you basically just have to show up to Phoenix and not do much more. You've put yourself in a great position on points, so I'm sure that's a big weight off your shoulders. But I still got to ask, for Phoenix, what are your thoughts about that track? We got the new scan coming that comes out tomorrow, so the surface may be a little bit different than what we're used to. How do you feel going into next week?
We'll be really excited. Be an even playing field for everybody. We'll try to get in here, maybe test, maybe like Monday or Tuesday, to kind of get a feel for it and see how everything plays out. But like I said, man, just knowing how the points played out tonight and everything, I feel very comfortable going into Phoenix. Like I said, you hate to see guys just not show up, but you got to take it for what it is. We've had our struggles all year too, and just kind of stuck with it, and hopefully nothing happens next week, and we'll be here next week and be the 2021 champion.
Absolutely, trying to make it 2 consecutive championships, and what a feat that would be, and looking incredibly likely. Congratulations on the win tonight, Greg. Is there anybody that you'd like to shout out or thank?
Yeah, man, I definitely got to thank iRacing and iFlag. They've been on the car all year long. as a primary associate. Maverick Concepts, Hacksaw PCs, Sam Maxwell Customs. Man, I know I'm forgetting guys. Whelen Engineering. My guys from Steel Horse Racing. What was that one more time? Oh yeah, I Am Second, man. If you've never checked those guys out, it is a very, very great website. And that's about the only way I can describe it. Carolina Simworks, of course. I think those guys as well. Just an amazing year. Like I said, we had our down times where we didn't win a race for a while and just kind of kept digging and digging. And man, it's just kind of all played in our favor the last few weeks.
The number 2 team, fast when it counts, and doing a phenomenal job. Again, congratulations on the win, Greg, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. You guys have a good night. Thank you guys again for broadcasting it, and man, we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week, Greg. And that is your race winner out of the booth. And with that, it's just about going to do it for our post-race coverage here for the Homenet hosting Atlanta 250. Again, I want to thank everybody who tuned in to the race tonight. Hopefully you had fun alongside us. Again, I'm Andre Grambush, joined alongside Carlos Acosta and Jordan Harnish, who unfortunately was taken out of the race for commentating about halfway through with a power outage. But hopefully everything's going well with him. Again, sending my best thoughts, man. Stay safe. And same goes everybody home. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week at Phoenix.